Hello, everybody. Sorry for the slight delay there, but despite the hour, I was getting questions from a coworker on a problem they were having regarding Git, and I had to answer that really quickly before we jump in. How's everybody doing this fine Tuesday or early morning Wednesday? Hope everybody's having a great day. Pardon me, having a little bit of fun in the chat here regarding various ways to say hello. I know basically two languages, English and French, and I mostly only know English. French is something that I learned in school when I was but a lad, and now I speak what we refer to as package labeling French, because if you're unaware, here in Canada, we're a bilingual country, and every product has to have English and French on its packaging, and as a result, I can recognize the word for strawberry and raspberry and bread and such. Oh, good. Everybody's having a good day. That is the awesome. I'm just making sure everything is cool here. We're still on the, I am indeed Canadian. I live on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia. And we're currently on 10 seconds of latency here because we're having a little bit of a problem with YouTube dropping information and buffering people like crazy when we were doing the ultra low latency. I'm not sure why that's the case because Twitch, pardon me for bumping the mic, can do the exact same thing, but there we go. Seems to be okay. No, the company that I work for is in the Mississauga area. Well, one part of the company that I'm in anyway, because we are a multinational company. It's all over the country. There we go. Just double checking. Everything's cool. There we go. There you go. Victoria. We've been there a few times. Not since certain travel restrictions came into play, but we have some friends that do glass sculpture work. You may have heard me mention them before on a stream here, or maybe on one of the streams I also do on Twitch. They do soft glass, the same sort of glass rods that you might use to make beads. They use to make characters and sculptures of all descriptions. They live on Salt Spring Island, and we've actually visited them a fair number of times, sometimes going through the Victoria, sometimes going straight there. And a couple of times, we actually just went directly to Victoria and just sort of hung out for, did we actually stay over? I can't remember. It seems so long ago. Beautiful area, though. We did a lot of walking. My favorite part of the story is that we took a trip to Salt Spring Island. We were on ferries. One of the days we were there, we stayed for about 4 or 5 days, maybe even a full week. I can't remember. It's been like a year and a half now. In an Airbnb, we took our dog with us, and so one day we decided let's just spend the day in Victoria, and we took the ferry over, and then we had to get on a bus because we didn't want to take our car on the ferry, and took the ferry trip in. The bus let us out right on the lawn of the Parliament, and we let the dog out of his travel bag, and the first thing he did was take a dump right on the Parliament lawn. And I thought, well, now we know what you think about politics, my friend. Ooh, you build guitars. That is awesome. As you may be able to see over my shoulder there, that one's not an acoustic guitar, of course, but that one is electroacoustic. That's a Gibson ES125. It has pickups in it, but it also is acoustic as well. It's like a learning guitar from a long ways back. So despite the fact that it's a relic of a bygone age, it's also not made of solid wood, at least the top's not. The other guitar that's hanging there is an Epiphone SG400 Les Paul Custom. I also have a Simon & Patrick Sitka Spruce in the other room, and in the closet behind me, carefully controlled in its climate-controlled case, is a Martin DCPA 4, the Pride and Joy. The other guitars get to hang out. That one is the coolest of all of the ones that I have. Took a long time to save up the money for that thing. We keep it safe. Also, you can't see, but right above the right where the frame cuts off, there's there's a guitar for the Nintendo Wii version of Guitar Hero. Excellent. I do not. Well, I mean, there's also a piano behind me. I play a little bit of keys. I actually also have another interface that's over there as well. That's more of a MIDI related thing. Hence the package that we have for Sublime Text that adds a piano. Though I have not set that up on this particular system yet, I don't think, since I rebuilt things. I've always been better at the theory of music than the actual practice of music. But I don't... I never really wanted to learn to play guitar to play in front of people or to be famous or anything like that. It's entirely just, for me and my wife when she's around sort of situation. So I don't need to be super awesome. I just, like to have fun strumming and playing things. The Guitar Hero is actually what got me into playing guitar. As weird as that sounds, it's something that I wanted to do my whole life, and we got given Guitar Hero 3 for the Wii, and it was like so much fun to play along, and I had a better sense of rhythm than I ever thought that I did. I actually jumped into actually learning how to play guitar for real. Good times. Now we got all kinds of stuff over here. There you can see, boop, the monitor that I used. I connect it to the camera, boop, when I create videos in the area back there to be able to see what it is I'm actually recording on the camera. You can actually see the the HDMI cable right there as well. I have the next version of I can't remember what it was called. But there's Guitar Hero 3, and then I think it wasn't like Guitar Hero 4, but the next one after that as well. Every time I see that guitar on the wall, I get tempted to pull that out, but I'd have to connect it to something. Actually, I guess I had that monitor there. I could probably do that. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm not a good player by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, I have some very old videos lying about from like a decade ago of myself playing a few things, but these are the sort of things that I kept on my YouTube channel. Oh, well, I think everything seems to be working properly. As far as I can tell, I'm not getting any freaky buffering. So interesting. Oh, look at that. Wi-Fi available by phone. Thank you, device that can't keep itself connected to Wi-Fi for more than 15 minutes at a time. Hang on one second. I'm going to tap a button here. What if, instead of choosing to use my mobile data, you were to connect to this network right here? Oh, I got to type a password in now. You got to be kidding me. Pardon me. Whoops, I don't think that actually went anywhere. Let's double check. How is everybody else's day going? Are your devices deciding that the Wi-Fi stops working? My password's very complicated. Don't hack me. Boop, 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 boop. Boom. Was it guitar? Oh, it might have been that. Huh. That's interesting. I wonder if that's the... Was that the one that came directly after? I had a guitar for that one too. That's the guitar that I got that has the... I think I liked that one better. The one that's on the wall there that you can't see is the one from Guitar Hero 3. Just had the buttons. The one for the other one had the slide area as well. But the whammy bar on that one broke under the vibrato tremolo bar, if you will. Uh-oh. Well, that's not working either. Come on, my friend. You say you're connected, but you don't actually connect. Now is the time on Sprockets when we connect, man. That's weird. Bar gigs. Oh my. Never been brave enough to do that. I'm not entirely sure how best to solve a problem of a page that won't reload. Oh, hang on. to do that either, huh? I think World Tour might have been the one that I had. I'd have to go check the thing, though. Hang tight. Technical failures being what they are. How about that? Thank you. Is anybody aware of how to use Chrome OS from the tablet section? Oops, there we go. Various operations never seem to work as well as I want them to without the dedicated keys. That seems to be working. Alrighty. Let us, I think, we've reached threshold here. Things are actually working. Good times. It's time to press the mystical button. Also, it would be cool if I took a sip of a drink, too. Guitar Hero, I kind of missed that as a game. My favorite song in Guitar Hero 3 was Cliffs of Dover. And I have also vivid memories of visiting my wife's family. She's from Wisconsin, and of course I live in Canada. So when we got married, we moved, or she moved here rather. We went to visit her family. She had a niece that also had Guitar Hero 3, and there was a song in it that she could, Time of My Life. I think that's what it's called. It's been so long. That's probably not the actual name. The Story of My Life. Sorry. And her niece could not get through that song to save her life. So I was called upon to pick up the mantle and play. And I also had a terrible time of it. But then we synced her TV so that the visual on the screen and the audio coming out had the appropriate delay, and then nailed it. And I think she did better after that as well, which just goes to show always use your latency compensation. Yeah, I have an MP3 of that particular version of Cliffs of Dover from via Musicom, and then my music library also has a bunch of other versions of Cliffs of Dover, also by him, but they're like live, and they're good, but they're not the memory of that one exact one from that's the one. Yeah, Story of My Social Distortion. There you go. It's is a song that there's a lot of music in that game that I'd never really heard of before, or that I had heard but didn't know who actually sang it, and I got to become intimately familiar with it over the course of time that I was playing the game. That very niece that I was talking about, by the way, was kind of cranky about how I didn't have the game for very long when I was getting maximum stars on all of my performances. But when it was discovered that her latency on her TV was not set up correctly, and she was trying to use visual clues, and it was way, way off, that became a lot more understandable, if we will. But we are here to talk about Sublime Text as well as just hang out and chat in the general case. So how's everybody doing this fine week? Just double checking how things are going in here. I just noticed. Forest Blaster, Foghat Slow Ride. Oh, what about is that the one that had Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force and was just absolutely impossible to do anything with? Standard rules of YouTube stream apply. Links totally allowed. YouTube doesn't want them to be in here. If you'd like to share a link in here, then you can jump into the Discord. The link just scrolled through in the chat. Post them in the chat section of the Discord, and then you got to mention something in the chat here so that I'll know to go look, because generally I try not to disrupt the stream by looking into the Discord unless I'm expecting a message. Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, were you around for the Twitch stream, not last Friday, but the Friday before, where we were doing refactoring of the drop game that we created, and the stream went for 5 hours, and I managed to write one class and one comment, but the rest of the time we just spent chatting with the chat. I love interfacing with you guys, with the community. If you have a question about Sublime Text, we most certainly can answer that. If you have any other questions, we might be able to answer those too. I don't know. And also, just chatting is perfectly fine. So if you happen to be watching and you're not participating in the chat, if you have any questions about Sublime Text, feel free to shout those out here. We'll try to get you sorted out. We can go directly into the Sublime that we have available right here and be good to go. Here's a little something for anybody out there that might be interested, or that they're not interested per se, but that does do plugin development. I have this package whose job it is to allow me to work with the YouTube videos on my channel. You've probably seen me use this various times throughout a stream. I can say get video link. It downloads the list of videos, and then maybe a quick tips 20. The video from this week, I can very easily grab a link to something like how to create your own custom Sublime Text build. Click that, paste here, link, good to go. This whole package, YouTube Editor, is the package that I created to actually do something like that. Now, here's the fun bit of informations here. When I work with videos, I work with my final video editing software is TechSmith Camtasia, because I have screen recordings in it, and of all of the software I've tried, it provides the highest quality of screen recording. It's basically entirely lossless with a very manageable file size, and as software that's meant to be showing you how to doing screencast type recordings. It has tons of features in it that make it a lot easier to do things like scroll, pan, zoom, stuff like that. When it comes time to create the actual text of a video, like if we did edit video details and picked QT20, for example, or this week's video, we end up with a little something like this. Now, right now, for some reason, the image isn't downloading. It should be able to download that, but for right now, for some reason that I don't understand, that is not working. I think part of things might be kind of broken. But this part here, the table of contents on a particular video, which allows that being able to link stuff, actually comes from markers on the timeline. So I created a command whose job it is to load that file. And here on Linux, this code works. And on Windows, it used to work. And then in Sublime Text 4, it stopped. And I don't know why. Hang on a second. Is it expensive? Kinda. It was the first time. This is the sort of the when you buy it for the very first time, it can be kind of expensive. Definitely, I would recommend that you use the trial and see if it does what you'd like to be able to do. It can do screen recording, but it can also do screen editing as well. It's a full non-linear editor. But you can also purchase a maintenance agreement, and your maintenance agreement is basically the upgrade fee to the next version. So when you there's a jet outside. When you buy a version, you get the maintenance, and then when the next version comes out, because as long as your maintenance is still active, you just automatically get access. That's a ton cheaper. The more expensive tool that I use is HitFilm Pro, which I use for the camera footage. I record on my camcorder, which we could see back there before I moved into this version. I also record audio separately using the same headset as this, sweeten it up in Reaper, which is also something that I have available for Linux as well. Combine the audio and the video in basically because Camtasia as a screen editing software, it's a very capable editor for all the stuff that you see me do on my videos, but it doesn't have as good a quality visual effects like color correction and the like, or audio effects, because it's, I don't know, not, well, I mean, it's professional software, but not meant for professional video editing. Keaton S, hello, thank you for stopping by, and thank you for the kind words as well. You stan Reaper? I'm not sure what that means, Yadku, but also hello. I'm glad that you enjoy the videos. If you have any questions about Sublime Text, feel free to drop them in right now. We're just sort of going over some sort of a little bit of fun information here. If we were to look at, and I spent some time trying to figure out why this is the case. We should probably also fix that other problem, I guess, if we wanted to work on a little bit of a plugin thing. If we get a blank window, I can choose Insert Table of Contents. I think in here we would find this TechSmith Camtasia project file. Open it up, and it inserts this table of contents exactly like we might expect it to. It shouldn't be at the top, though. The syntax definition for this expects one paragraph and then another and another. So see how that worked perfectly fine? On Windows, that doesn't work. Nothing is inserted. No error message is generated in the console, unlike what happens here with my help software, which is probably an issue all into itself. But on Windows, this doesn't work. In Sublime Text 4. In Sublime Text 3, it did work. And in earlier versions of Sublime Text 4, it did. But now, for some reason, it doesn't. And I've been trying to work out a test case for why that happens to be the case. The most obvious reason, if you were to look at this, would be that this is the part that actually does the work. Get the active window, get the table of contents out of the file. If it's not, none, insert it. Nothing is inserted, you assume must not have been able to get the table of contents, right? But if I include a print inside of here and print results, it'll print exactly what I want inserted. So I actually have that on my Windows machine out there, so I can copy it out of the console and paste it. Oh, yeah, it is amazingly awesome. I don't use it to nearly the extent that I should, but you know, for things, it is my one-stop shop for audio recording. I use that to modify the EQ curve of the headset. This is the exact same mic and configuration that I use for my YouTube videos. Hopefully it sounds better, or at least okay, in videos as compared to here, where this is just sort of the raw stuff coming directly out of the microphone. But it is some amazing software. It's only like $60. Reaper.fm, not a paid plug or anything. But if you're looking for some editing software, for digital audio workstation related stuff, doing MIDI, using VSTs, recording, editing of audio, top-notch stuff. Of course, there's also free alternatives like Audacity and the like. But if you purchase a license to Reaper, it's $60 US, and that gets you all of the current major version and all of the next major version as well. So it's like version 5 right now. So version 5, version 6 is what I have. This is actually the second time I've purchased a license for this thing. Great little bit of software. And Ayush asked, are you using event listeners for getting a panel instead of a quick panel? I am using event listeners, I would imagine. I have body, tags, and title, and global, and that one's less interesting. But for example, these are all going to be in the same file. These are all for the this part here. there's a limit to how long the title of a YouTube video can be. Turn off caps lock. Once that gets exceeded, you can see this turning red. That's because this is 100 characters is how long a, let me jump that, I'm back in the chat here. This is the maximum length that a video title can be. Anything after that is YouTube won't allow it. So we have an error here to tell us that. And the same thing down here for tags. Does the same sort of thing. So I have event listeners in place for those to verify that the body has, or say the title has a length of 100. The body can only have 5,000 characters. That's a 5K for the description of a video, and tags can be 500. And also, individual tags can only be theoretically 28 characters. Although, as far as I can see, their documentation on that and what they actually expect and will accept is completely different. But that's neither here nor there. And there's also a global one to set up the log panel, which is available down here as well, so we can see all of this stuff that has happened inside of this. The package was loaded. It started a thread to run in the background in order to talk to YouTube. I requested authorization. I keep a cache of all of the video data because it can take a little bit of a while to download the information on 200 plus videos, or even one video at a time. Information on channels. This was when I copied the link to that. This is the link that popped out in case I wanted to grab the exact same one again, and so on. If you have plugin questions, we can definitely cover those here in the video as well. There are still some plugin 101 videos to come on some of the new features of the API in Sublime Text 4. For example, one thing that I was sort of playing with earlier. This particular plugin uses the ability for list input handlers in the command palette to use kind information in the same sort of way as the autocomplete panel does. So for each of these ways that we can mark up text, it can actually show you that this is, it may or may not actually hover text that, because I'm not entirely sure what has the focus right now. But what the color is actually going to be when it gets inserted, like we want some orange text, boop, now the text is marked in orange. That's something that needs to be talked about on the channel. Also the new auto completion items as well. I have plans for those. I haven't gotten too far down the line with them, because while I was working on them, Sublime Text 4 became publicly available. And I've been trying to cover people's common questions that they're having about the upgrade. That's why the last couple of videos have been, their top 10 questions, and the new Python build system in Sublime Text 4 might have stopped working for people that were using Python in certain situations on Windows. So I wanted to cover that as well. Is Sublime getting dead because of Visual Studio Code? I don't think so. I can't say definitively one way or the other, but I don't see that happening. No, they're similar tools, but kind of designed for different audiences. So I think Visual Studio Code is probably very popular for a lot of reasons. One of those would be that it's free, but Sublime's not free. But if you try it and use it, you might find, and many people do, myself included, that while it's not Visual Studio Code and it doesn't have the full feature set of that, it has the features that we want, or it provides other benefits like speed being the prime one, that make it worth the money. But it's entirely a personal decision for each individual person what tool is right for them. But yeah, I don't see Sublime Text going away anytime soon. There seems to be a lot of people that think that it should be given away free. I don't think that's probably going to happen at any relative time. Also, Jobico, I'm too used to trying to pronounce Twitch usernames, which are generally not the name of a person. And on YouTube, sometimes it is the name of the person and sometimes it's not. So I can't tell if that's supposed to be a nickname or if that's your actual name. So apologies if I mispronounce it. But also, hello and welcome to the stream. Yeah, Sublime definitely has a very solid community. There is a Discord that is extremely active. The forum has definitely picked up since Sublime Text 4 has come out, and there are a ton of packages available for package. And we can actually see some information here. I can't remember. Is there a... Boop. There are currently this many packages. There are 20 million users with that many authors. 61,000 package installs just yesterday. That's a lot of installs for one thing. How does that track with Visual Studio Code? I do not know. Garish, hello. Welcome to the channel. Why doesn't an input statement work in Sublime? Basically because... Let's close that. Let us close that, and we will close project. The reason that that doesn't work, inputs don't work, is because when Sublime executes something with a standard build, you end up with a panel like this, which is something that you could theoretically type into, but when Sublime runs the program, it doesn't do any sort of emulation whatsoever. I mean, the best way to show something like this would be to do this. If I was to run top here, this is Linux, by the way, but that doesn't matter. This program is using all sorts of fancy code to say that it should display the whole screen, and then every second it should refresh the screen. So it has to do things like send codes that tell the system to position the cursor back to the top so that it can display everything again. And some of this stuff is in a slightly different color. Those are sort of a darker, bolder, whiter color than these are. This is inverted as well. Those are all examples of things that terminals do for you, being able to position the cursor, display colors, and things like that. Those are things that this panel does not do. If we actually use view package file and look at exec.py in the default package, this is the command whose job it is to execute a program. There's a little bit of Python that's available in here. But standard out and standard error are outputs. Standard in is what input would actually come from. And you can see here, it connects the output to something that will read the panel and put it out there, but it doesn't connect input. So anything that you try to do with input won't work. However, you can definitely use Terminus, which is very easy to use, to convert any build into being an interactive build. I have a video for that on the channel as well. I mean, since I pointed this out earlier, interactive. This video talks about why that might be a problem, but this one shows you how to take any build system you have and use the Terminus package, which is this one, to do things that do in fact take input. Common question is Sublime Text ever going to get a native terminal like that? And the answer is probably not. I mean, never say never, but the developers have stated explicitly that doing something like that properly and in a cross-platform way, because Sublime has to work on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, is something that makes it seem like it should be its own application and not something that's directly built into the editor. They want to focus more on the editing aspect of things. Do I have an example? Just to show this. This is the Python build system that ships directly with Sublime. If you wanted to run a Python program, this is how it would work. This is how easy it is to create a new build system that uses Terminus. Take the existing one, copy it, tools, build system, new build system, paste that over top of it. The target is Terminus exec, and cancel is Terminus cancel build. save the file in the location it specifies with some name, pick it from the build system menu. Your build is interactive. Also do the thing where you install Terminus. This is a good situation for how something can be provided by the community. Sublime provides the underlying tools and mechanisms necessary for something like this to work. And if the developer is focused just on keeping the API doing what you want it to without having to focus on specific ways that the API is being used, that is better for everybody. Ben, hello. Welcome to the stream. I noticed you were commenting up a storm on the on the issue tracker. Oh, someone was posting something earlier. No drop games on YouTube. Sorry. Primarily, the reason for that is that YouTube bots seem like they're a pain in the butt, and there's a huge latency in chat. Oh, awesome! Yeah. So there we go. That's the that's sort of the reasoning behind that, and an easy way to fix it. There are also other ways to do the same thing. One would be just run your program externally, and you're good to go. Whoops. Or you can craft a build system that will actually open a terminal. And I also have videos on that as well if you check on the channel. So many unread forum posts. I'm currently sitting at inbox 0 on the forum. But I will admit that whenever one of the threads pops up for how people are a little bit unhappy about stuff, I mostly just skim it and scroll to the bottom to make the little dot go away, because I've seen everything that needs to be said about that. But I think that problem sort of solved now that you've locked the two main things. But such a busy, fun time, if you will. Even Stack Overflow is seeing a little bit more of a surge of questions about Sublime Text in the last couple of days. Everyone who watches me use Sublime asks how I have that terminal. Yeah, it is pretty awesome. I've mentioned previously that when it comes to doing anything file related, one of the questions that people often want answered is, why can't I do file manipulations in the sidebar? Yeah, you can. I don't care about you. I want to grab this file and move it, or I want to move this folder, or things like that. And they say that it's a natural extension to want to do that, and I'm not saying that that's not the case. But personally, everything I do that's file manipulation related, I do from a terminal. And Terminus is very handy for something like this. If I need to do something really quick and easy, I just pop up Terminus, do it, and then close it up, and I'm good to go. If I take a more longer running action, then I would open an actual terminal, which is why I have a button for it up there. It's sort of on the taskbar hidden behind the chat. Or I might even have a couple of different tabs in there as well, or multiple windows open. I could, if I want to see two things side by side while I'm doing them. When it comes to using Windows, then I use this sort of graphical file thing, and I'm usually very unhappy about it because I find it easier to navigate around and take actions most of the time using the command line as opposed to, say, using an interface such as this one. That's just me, though. So that's probably up there on the wish list that people have. That and being able to put their own content into the sidebar, or get information about what's in the sidebar out for use in a plugin. One of those is probably more likely than the other, I think. Although I don't know how likely putting stuff into... If I had to guess... whether if one of the two things, having the API to pull out what's currently visible in the sidebar, or having the ability to put fake information into the sidebar, I would bet on the fake information before I'd bet on the pulling information out. But that's just me. And the only reason for that is various discussions I've seen between the developers of Sublime and the community about the sheer volume of information that could potentially be stored in the list of open files and folders, and the load that it would cause trying to shuffle all of that information across the plugin host bridge to be able to give access to it in plugins. In fact, that was, I believe, the discussion that caused the person who owned the repository for the issue tracker to get all angry for a bit and lock it down before he eventually handed the keys over. The unhappiness of being told that that was a thing that probably wasn't going to happen. Always good to remember that everybody on the internet, even though we only appear a lot of times to be a little circle with a face in it and a name associated with it, we are still people. We should all be civil and nice to each other. And sometimes that's not the case. Most of the time in the Sublime Text community, it is, and that is absolutely awesome. But yeah, I am, well, not mystified by that. Whoops. I am absolutely dumbfounded as to why this does not cause any text to be inserted. I'm pretty sure that it happened in a particular one build of Sublime Text 4, because I've been using Sublime 4 since November 2019 when the first builds became available in the Discord. And it was only recently that suddenly this package just sort of stopped working, and I was too busy to figure out why. Unfortunately, just taking this little bit of code and putting it into its own plugin works as expected, because of course it does. What bug would be fun to debug if that wasn't the case, right? The thing that I was thinking of taking a look at was the browser sync package, which for some reason there we go. Someone was asking about this earlier in the Sublime Text Discord. That might be a little bit too small. There we go, roundabout there. For launching a browser from Sublime Text 3. Actually, I'm not sure. I forgot. I think. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the right one. Hang on. Browser refresh. Pardon me, I had the wrong link open. Browser refresh is the thing that I was thinking of looking at, because someone in the Discord, Sublime Text Discord, was discussing this, trying to get it working earlier today, and I might need to install something, unless I actually happen to have that installed. Of course I don't. I forgot about that aspect of this. That could shut some stuff down. Let's see if it's something that's easy to compile from source while we discuss some things. Or maybe it comes with a pre-built binary. August 5th, 2016. Huh, wow, that has been around for a while. We'll download a thing, shall we? I want to be able to do things with X. Let's do that over here. Oh, it's the source code, is it? Huh. That's weird. Ashwin, hello, welcome. How you doing this fine morning? I was gonna play with browser refresh, but I forgot that if you want to use it on Linux, you have to have a tool installed, and the GitHub repository for said tool includes the source code and the source code, and then also this file I downloaded, which inexplicably also is the source code, unless there's also a binary in here somewhere as well. We can always check and see if it's the sort of thing that wants to compile or not. Unless there's a binary in here, but I don't think there is. Does not look like it. Compile, make, install, make, install. All right, that's easy. Not too bad, all things told. Better than some of my coworkers who are currently still at work. I have a window over there for Mattermost. Every now and then someone shoots a Git-related question at me, but it's being kind of quiet. Hopefully that won't impact on the stream too much. But it has been, well, I mean, today was a rather long day in regards to meetings. That's just sort of seems to be the status quo for these sorts of things. How, for those of us that are professional developers, what is your personal take on the agile methodology? You know, with the daily 15-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute stand-up, using Jira for stories and epics, and using story points for estimating time. We were having quite of a rousing discussion about that earlier today, and it really seems like people fall into the two categories of I hate it and I love it. And if you fall into the I hate it category, your stand-up meetings or your Scrum meetings at the beginning of every day are taking anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And if you love it, you have the strong leadership that keeps people on track, and those meetings only last no more than 10 or 15 minutes, and then everybody gets back onto doing what they're doing, which I found rather interesting, because I'm definitely in the hate it camp, and I'm also in the hour and a half long meeting camp as well. So I find that, you know, kind of fun, such as it is. Oh, I forgot to check. And that should be on the path, so that should be fine. For our purposes here, let us maybe we don't want to use safe mode. Let us do this. Sublime Text Linux, Sublime Text build 4107. Thus, oops. Hang tight. Oh, what? Let's do that again, because I may have had a file laying around there. Yeah, that was my take on that situation as well. It all comes down to that, and I will say that I'm in the camp where the meetings are ridiculous, and the meetings are ridiculous because everybody is unhappy about how the developers aren't getting enough work done, and for some reason that means Clearly, the only reason why us as developers aren't meeting our timelines is because we're not doing a good enough job of expressing to management and to each other all of the pitfalls that we have on the day-to-day basis. So obviously we're just spending all of our time sitting, staring at a screen, not doing anything, where if we talk to people, we could get the answers to problems and continue on. Realistically, the actual problem is we never have a chance to do anything because we're spending too much time accounting to management for how we don't have enough time to do anything because we're constantly in meetings attending to management. Now, you may have heard me mention that my main manager at work has taken a 6-week medical leave for reasons we still don't know. As a result, the next person in charge under her, the one that was her sort of assistant and, well, not assistant and helper per se, but she's also a developer like us, but she's the next highest up on the chain, and anything that the one manager didn't do, she took the slack. So she's the manager now, and the first thing she did, because she's actively, a developer, is no more daily meetings. We only need to have a daily meeting if someone has a problem and they can't ask somebody in the Mattermost and get an answer. If it's a question where you can just say, hey, how do I blah, or what's the solution to blah, or I don't understand blah, and someone can respond in 2 or 3 sentences in the Mattermost, which for those of you that aren't aware of, Mattermost is basically Discord, but for companies. Then and only then will we have a meeting, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll go about our day. And we don't have management in there crufting up the business. And as a result, our productivity has actually gone way up in the last week. By far. Now we're going to be running this unregistered because I am not unable, but unwilling to inject my license key into this thing. Yeah. And I should also point out that our daily stand-ups were sit-downs because they were taking an hour and a half. So yeah, that really, it makes a world of difference. Now, what we actually have now is the upper level management people requiring us at the end of the day to provide them via a little template they provided an update on what did 2 sentences on what you did today, 2 sentences on what you did tomorrow. When's this due? Are we going to get this done? Are we at risk? Yes, no. And if no, is there anything that we can do about it? And that takes less than 15 minutes to type out. So hopefully the other members of the team will keep up with that and not need to be prompted all the time. And somebody up ahead will learn that things actually happen faster if you don't spend all of your time interminably talking about stuff. We'll install package control. I remember back in my day, when we first started using package control, you had to go to the package control website and get some text and then paste it into the console. Let's do a little bit of this. I can only take so much. The font size should probably be a little bit bigger too. Let's say font size 13. And font face is something like look at that. I totally remembered it. I'm some kind of pro. Yeah. What was the really for? The the management actually allowing something like that? I don't think I was paying enough attention to what it was that I was saying there while I was doing some stuff. But yeah, it's astounding. There was one complaint from a manager who was all like, hey, if you don't do your daily thing, your lack of update will be noted. And then one of my coworkers got like a sternly worded, hey, you didn't send a status update yesterday. Why didn't you send a status update yesterday? And his reply was, because I took the day off because I was doing something. Remember when you approved it? And there we go. The PC to copy. Oh, for package control? Yeah, did you, were you unaware of that? I wonder if it's still in here. In the olden days, you'd go to installation, and you probably have to use the, see, yeah, let's do this. Let's see. I don't know if this is something that the Internet Wayback Machine might actually do something with. But say back in 2016, roundabout April, well, let's say this one. This is roundabout when I actually, well, was probably more towards the front, but nevertheless. Oh, sorry, I gotta click a time. I always forget how to use the Internet Archive. But there wasn't a command inside of Sublime Text like we just saw. There's tools, install package control. It's not there now because package control is installed. That didn't used to be there. If you wanted to install package control, what you'd have to do is come to the package control website, click on installation, and you could decide, are you using Sublime Text 2 or Sublime Text 3? And then you take all of this text and copy it and paste it into the console. So you would like copy this, come over to, whoops, here, paste that in, and of course, what this is actually doing is, if you look at all of the code, talking to package control, downloading the file, and putting it more or less in the correct place. That's how we used to have to do this. So there was text in here that said, please don't copy the text of this. Or sorry, don't copy the text of this and link it somewhere. Always just link to this page, because the hash would be different for each time there was a new build. Now we don't need to do something like that because there's a command that's built in. Oh, here we go. Please do not redistribute the install code via another website. It will change with every release. And if that doesn't work, then and only then try to download the package here from this linked locale. Now, of course, it doesn't say that. The easiest way to do it is just do it from the command palette or the menu. But if you really have to, download the file and put it in the correct place. But how times have changed. Good times. This is now, much more functionally easier. People sometimes complain that package control isn't built into Sublime Text, but realistically, click, two things. It's not the hardest thing in the world. When it comes to the trade-off between you click the mouse twice or Sublime Text developers spend less time actually working on Sublime Text because they have to also support package control. I see the arguments on both sides of that, but I tend to side more on the side of the Sublime Text developers because I'm a developer myself, and that's exactly the sort of headache I wouldn't be interested in having. Next, we need to install, what was it we were looking at here? The browser refresh package. Don't say browser sync, browser refresh is what we want. Yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing. Let's say I understand why people think that sort of thing. I think I'm sort of inured to it because I spent so much time in the Lua mailing list where people would constantly complain that there was a feature that they wanted Lua to have, and their argument for why it should be built in was literally because they didn't want to have to go to the trouble of adding it themselves. And when you're a user of something like Sublime Text, where maybe like me, you're a software developer, maybe you're a web developer and you're just doing design related things, maybe you're just writing prose. There's one person on the forum at least that's basically just using this to write scripts. In that case, I can see an argument for, I don't want to take the steps to add that myself. But for something like Lua, where that is a programming language meant to be used by developers to embed code, the argument of, but I don't want the trouble of adding 4 lines of code does not wash, in my opinion. So we're going to install browser refresh and see what happens. Someone was asking about this in the Sublime Text Discord and also in my personal Discord as well. And I didn't have a chance to look at it because there was a bunch of training that was happening earlier today. So Make sure you add the necessary key binding. Go to Preferences, Package Settings, Browser Refresh, Key Bindings, User in the menu, and add the following. Well, I'm going to not do that, and I'm just going to do it the other way instead. I'm going to say user. Oh, actually, I guess I can't because this is brand spanking new. I'll just pick this one because this is the file that's going to open anyway. Can you ask me about my LSP setup for Sublime Text 4 for Python? I do not have one currently. We have played with it on a stream a little bit in the past, but not for any appreciable length of time. I think the one that we used when we were testing it was related to doing install package and then saying LSP Python. And Pyrite was the one that is here. That has a support package built in so that everything is automatically configured. So that's the one that we used. And we'll set that up right now. We install LSP. The people in the LSP channel in Sublime Text Discord might have more information on which one of those is the better one as far as they're concerned, because the developers of LSP use it themselves and it's written in Python. So I would imagine that, oh, actually both of them are here, aren't they? PyLS, convenience package for the Python language server, Microsoft Pyrite. I want to say that Pyrite is the one that they think is better because it's the name that sounds more familiar, and they figure that because it's also used by Visual Studio Code, it would be more actively developed, and maybe the developers from PyLSP PyLS have jumped to. I can't remember directly, no. But personally, I don't have an opinion because I don't use LSP. Yeah, I would imagine that just based on the idea that it's something that, you know, Visual Studio Code uses the same server backend as this would use, so that would probably be where I would go for that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Guido works for them now, right? I forgot about that. We got an extra package here. There was a news article on my phone about him and Python just recently, which made me wonder what was going on and why people were talking about it. But I often wonder about stuff like that, you know, because of things like the latest version of Minecraft came out today, and there was an article yesterday saying the release date has been announced. I'm like, yeah, but everybody knew about it more than just yesterday. I think your newsmongers might not be very good there. Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. LSP videos are something that are on the docket for future inclusion for videos. I just haven't gotten to that part yet. I sort of have a list of video ideas and a tentative schedule for roundabout how I want them to roll out on the channel. But I also tend to toss that up a little bit when there's, you know, say for example, the last couple of videos on the channel have been the top 10 frequently asked questions about the Sublime Text 4 update, and yesterday's video was, so you use Python and you didn't have a custom build and now it doesn't work for you in Sublime Text 4, but it did before. What the hell's going on? Those are examples of videos that bumped other things in the video schedule because they're things that people are talking about right now in the forum and in the community, and I try to be as timely as possible with those sorts of things. So if I see people commonly asking a question or not knowing how something works and I want to jump that video up in the queue, and then the other videos are just sort of for times when that doesn't happen. So right now with Sublime Text 4 being out, I don't necessarily know how that's going to affect things, but working on LSP videos, which will require me to actually spend more time with it than I tend to have thus far, because it's just not something that I tend to use in my own use of Sublime Text, so that I can provide more information on people other than, it's cool, you should click this button. Yeah, even Ashwin recommends it as well. Do you... polled about usage of LSP. Not as far as I'm aware. Yeah, my recommendation, I've never used LSP myself in any appreciable way. I've installed it a couple times like I did just now. We can play with it in a minute. But I would definitely recommend LSP over the Anaconda package, which is a little bit old now, which is not to say that it's not a good package, but LSP is more actively maintained, so it's probably a better experience. If for no other reason than in Sublime Text 4, there's been a lot of changes to the API that make things that do completion-related things a lot easier and better to use, and a lot of those changes were driven by needs that the LSP package had to be able to provide that level of integration. So even though Sublime doesn't have LSP support out of the box directly, the developers are providing the API required for LSP to work better. Yeah. I've never seen them ask that sort of thing, but that would definitely be interesting. The only information that I've even seen about that is the Stack Overflow developer poll, but that just covers tools per se, and I don't think it has the kind of breakdown. It would be cool to ask something like that in the actual forum. Yeah. I would say, now that I think about that, I think at some point in the past, there was something that maybe it was Will who mentioned that at least back in the early Sublime Text 3 days when it was still in beta builds, maybe even late Sublime Text 2, I can't remember the exact timing, web developers were a very large segment of things, and that all came about because of the Emmet package. And we all know Emmet is something that web developers use a lot. The package as it existed for Sublime before it was recently rewritten to be better tended to be the sort of package where there was a long litany of questions that people would have or problems that people would have that would come to the forum and say, I tried blah and it doesn't work, and the answer to the question is disable Emmet. And Will was mentioning how, despite the problems that Emmet is causing now, or was causing at the time, because it has been rewritten and it's a lot. I think it's rewritten to be in Python and native in Sublime instead of trying to install its own version of V8 inside of the plugin area so that it could run the JavaScript version of Emmet that was developed for other things. That Emmet really drove a lot of traffic to Sublime because of the web developers. Deprogrammers. There you go. Yeah, and Discourse definitely has a way to do something like that. I think the trick would be coming up with the appropriate answers. But, yeah. Emmet is also a tool that I don't use, but that's mostly because I don't do anything web-related, really. I'm not that great at it. I think Emmet is awesome as a tool if you're familiar enough with web development to be able to, on the fly, think of the short little, I'm going to need a list with this many items and they're going to have this class and boop, boop, boop. If that's the way that you work because you do so much web development, then Emmet is absolutely a time saver. But I'm one of those guys that sort of struggles through, okay, I guess I want this. Oh, I guess I need another div in here. Oh, I probably should have applied a class to this. That it doesn't provide as much help for me as it might have before. All right, let's go to this page. Always read readmes, always read documentation. Will this page actually do something? I will say this. Over the time that I've been in the forum and on Stack Overflow helping people with problems, I have anytime anybody had any problem with the tab key not doing something, the answer was almost invariably Emmet. Whenever the problem was I was doing some stuff and suddenly Sublime just hung while I was working with autocompletion, the culprit was Emmet, and so on down the line. And the standard advice was disable the Emmet package. It's known to cause problems. Since the new version came out, the only question that I've seen asked that was related to Emmet, and I've only seen it like twice, was related to its feature of showing you in a phantom to the right of what you're typing what it thinks you probably want to put there. And a couple of people did not like that it did that by default. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've never used it. Certainly tons of people seem to use it all over the place. So there's probably a very specific use case or some sort of interaction in there. But there was, if you search on the forum, there were like a lot of problems that were caused by that. Similarly, as a pro tip for anybody that also follows the forums and whatnot, if you were to, if you were to find someone mentioning how while they're typing code, oops, turn that back on, and then they come down here and type function and hit the open bracket, and no matter how many times you press it, nothing happens instead of this happening. Ask if they have the Jedi package, because Jedi is known, it tries to open its own autocomplete for function parameters and method parameters when you push that key, and it has problems doing it sometimes. Interesting. LSPs made Sublime hang? I've managed to hang Sublime myself with my own packages, but I don't think I don't use LSP all that much. What's the signature help? Do I have to enable the server? I probably do, don't I? Sure, we'll enable it globally. No, we won't. We won't enable it globally. Help! I'm floundering in the world of... Not work because I don't have a file stored on disk? In command, is it possible to get colored output? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I'm assuming by command you mean the Windows command prompt. I've never seen an example of that, but I don't tend to run programs that do it. I don't know if I have a system that's currently running that we could look at here. Let's see. No. It has shut down. Oh, maybe. I would have, yeah, I figured as I was doing it, I'm like, I bet you it wants there to be a file. Let's see. I'll just work in another laptop over here. Boop, 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 boop. Just to see. Oh, shoot. Nope, it rebooted itself. Dang. I'm not sure if command can do that directly. Certainly, it won't work for colored output if you just try to use the standard Sublime build system. That will definitely not output any color because output panels are a dumb terminal. I don't have an example of that. Oh, I have... my code is perfectly fine. Output panels are like this. Unless you have very specific packages installed, like Terminus, it's not going to interpret any colors in a build system anyway, for which case I would recommend Terminus, as was covered earlier. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure if the command prompt will support color. I would imagine that it probably does. I tend to use Commander, which uses ConIO, or ConEmu, sorry. I'm gonna, oh, here, check this out. Let's store this into this directory. That'll be good. Boop. Should I have to restart it? I guess I probably should, because it's throwing errors like a mofo. Holy crap. All right. Well, we can. I'm down with it. There, it's broken now. Do I use build systems for code formatting? Well, I can't test it that way, can I? Over here, pardon me. Where's my mouse cursor? There we go. The closest I get to something like that is this. For the times that I use this, I tend to use build systems for this sort of thing, yes. I know that there are, for example, LSP would lint stuff and tell me if there's problems in the code while I'm typing it. I personally find the idea of linting my code or formatting my code while I'm actively editing it annoying, you know, because you start typing a function, you're in the parentheses, you haven't gotten all of the stuff yet, and it's already complaining that you're using arguments in your function that haven't actually been used anywhere in the body, and there's little red squiggles all over everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, calm yourself. I'm not done writing it yet. I'll tell you when I'm ready for you to tell me if my code is dumb. While I'm typing it is not the time to tell me that my code is dumb. Let me take a breather first. So I tend to use specific tools at a specific point in time, including the idea of building the code as well. In this particular build, the default is to build it, and then also I can run it multiple times, or say I want to build it and then run it every time if I'm actively making changes. And then, you know, linting things. I also don't have, I know there are tools that you can use for Node that watch the files that are on disk and try to recompile the application when they're changed. I'm not a fan of that because very infrequently am I creating an application change where it's only going to take some small amount of stuff in one file. So my habit is I made some changes, save, let's go to the next file, and oh, now the application has tried to compile with partial changes and it's unhappy and the terminal is throwing all sorts of errors. So I've actually been known to, I have a key binding on save all, not on this machine, but on the Windows machine where I tend to do this sort of stuff more often, so that I have a bunch of unsaved buffers for things, and then once I'm sure that I'm probably done, then I save all so that it compiles once at that point. But yeah, that's just a personal thing on my part. I don't know that I like the idea of formatting on save either. Like I say, I like the idea that if I want to know that there's problems, I'll run it as a specific step. Particularly for Node, where it seems to take a while, but I don't want my code to change out from under me while I'm still actively typing it. But I'm on record as saying that I'm not a super fan of code formatters in the general case, just because I've never met one that has a format that I can agree with. Although when it comes to working collaboratively with people, I highly recommend it, because better that everybody be a little bit unhappy than one person be happy and everybody else be super miserable. Funny way to point that out. Is there a key binding for that? There probably is, isn't there? But I don't know what it is. Well. So, yeah. Gonna be unhappy about that, right? Yep, cool. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Our work repository has a pre-commit hook that uh, does lint checks and prettifier checks, uh, and it does them on the fly. As a result of that, I've lost changes that I didn't intend to check in because the person that wrote the script is not good at their job or didn't think that that was a thing. Um, Regarding that editor, that the one that I was just looking at here a second ago, shoot, prettier. Not a fan of this one, based on the arguments that we're providing here and whatever the configuration for this is. Because as far as we could tell, and we didn't dig into this too deeply, none of the options has a name similar to please semantically analyze my code and decide to rewrite it for me on the fly to something that's completely different than what I actually wrote, but which probably functionally remains the same. That's the sort of thing we don't want in our code base. We want things like this. Make sure everybody's using the correct tab width, that there's a trailing comma on things, that things are lined up in a certain way so that everything looks the same. Basically is what we're going for there. But we found while we were playing with this particular thing that in some date conversion code, it decided that instead of having a case statement in one thing, that it could just remove that case statement out of all of the possible list of formats and modify the call point for something further down to have extra stuff crammed onto arguments, which functionally is the same. But when you want your code to document, these are the formats that we support, please keep your dirty hands off of my code. Another bump on the print thread. Oh, am I missing it? Huh. Why I need a real print. My use case in your career. There's a lot of stuff in here. Wow, there's two of them. Wait, where was this one? December 2020? Oh, I see. This is a... Call me a whiner, if you will, along with those other so-called blah who have requested a native print function, but having to add print to some third-party mod sure seems like old-school neckbeard behavior. Boy, yeah. See, remember that thing I was saying earlier about people on the internet? We are, in fact, people. We're not just little bits of ones and zeros. Maybe we don't need to be so harsh with each other. Maybe I need to have an actual file open. Here. Boop. Check it out. The print doesn't work. Oh, sorry. Never mind. There it is. Ooh, boy, that was complicated. Look at all of the steps that I had to take to get this code to print. I had to push the key. For reasons I don't understand, this browser doesn't like the print call that is triggered by that. But I don't consider this to be a complication. I mean, if you have a browser to complain about it on the internet, you probably have a browser that can print things, right? You would be interested, JS Prettier, whatever that thing is that I was just looking at, it most definitely modifies your code. I actually have that in that project because we were going to deploy it as a part of something that I was doing already. I mentioned this in a previous stream, but I had to do an awful merge because I rewrote the entirety of how database operations for Mongo were happening behind the scenes. And as a result, I touched damn near every file in the entire project. And there were several other developers that had their own branches going. So I offered, because I was the one that understood the most about how my change worked to do all of their merges for them. So I spent an entire workday doing nothing but that merge over and over again. Got really handy and quick at it by the end. And we figured now would be the time to deploy code formatting, and because we were already changing everything everywhere anyway. And we set it up and then didn't pull the trigger on it right then because we needed to get on with something else, and we needed those changes committed. And it was semantically not changing the code, structurally very much changing the code, and we were not having that. There's opinionated. I'm okay with opinionated, such as these things go. I'm not really okay with opinionated. I like what I like, and I don't like being told that it has to look this way because we decided it should look this way. But again, for a team project, totally down with that, because the most important thing is consistency across all things to make code navigation a little bit easier. What I have a problem with is someone saying, no, you don't write it. You don't write your code like this. Move, come over here. Let me show you how to do. Yeah, that would be the reason why we wanted to do that. So that's still an outstanding thing to do. All things told, we have bigger fish to fry because ESLint generates more than 2,000 problems with the code base as it currently stands. Because it's code that is TypeScript and JavaScript that's written by people that are unfamiliar with either of those languages and mostly familiar with Fortran. So there's quite a few any's in a place where there shouldn't be. So it gets real mad about that. But also a lot of the things are it complaining that variables could be const instead of let because their values never change. Unfortunately, there are some structural things based on the way we've architected the application that make fixing them a lot trickier as well. The one thing that we do enforce is that everybody has the same settings regarding whether or not trailing white space is trimmed on save. For that very reason, I personally require it to be turned on for my own sanity, except in that project. We might have even have seen that in that window, as a matter of fact. Let's see. So in the theory behind this whole thing, by the way, oh yeah, I can't delete files like that anymore. We'll have to delete that later. That's okay though. Yeah, sure, save it. What the hell? Why'd I put a semicolon on there? Too much C lately. I feel the exact same way, by the way. But it was one of those, you see it and go like, oh, those could be fixed. But then the diffs and the merges for everybody is going to be a gigantic, horrible pain. And it's because I'm the one that's in charge of helping people with Git conflicts. I kind of have a vested interest in stopping that from happening. Also, it's by far the least egregious problem in the entire code base. To its credit, the prettifier points out, or the ESLint points out that there's a bunch of them that it could just fix for you if you provided the argument. Most of them are related to that. There's a couple of others. Now, we were doing something browser refresh related. So let's say we create a new tab. Now, we got to save this for the very first time. And we'll put this, I'll put in the same place. Sure, we'll call it untitled. This is the great thing about having just a temporary copy of Sublime Text. So, in theory, Super Shift R should save this page if I modify it. Oh, actually, hang on. What's that setting? Modified. Shoot, I can't remember what the name of the dang setting is. This one. Why, oh why, is that not turned on by default. Wonders oh that nerd whenever he does something like this. Okay. So I have that. If I move this file over here, Super Shift R should, in theory, save this and activate Chrome. Let's see what happens. Super Shift R. Well, it activated Chrome and it saved the file. So, I mean, all else being equal, that looks like it kind of worked. That's interesting. Hang on. Let's oh, shoot. Where's this actually stored? Oh my goodness. There we go. Whoops. Ah, my eyes. All right. Whoops. Shift Super R. Whoops. Well, didn't seem to do anything. So we got that going. It will refresh the browser of your choice. Oh, my goodness. That might have been conflicted by the fact that I have key bindings set for that. It should have been this one. Based on how well that worked. A build system around Python's built-in server. I don't know that it would be a build system per se. I guess it probably could be. That's interesting. Spawn a thread, start it running. I believe I looked into this a little bit at some point because I was working on something WebSocket related and I wanted to do something with it in Python. And the conclusion I came to was that the trickiest part of the whole operation isn't serving the page, it's telling the browser that it needs to reload the page. And the ways that various packages do that is different. This particular one, I'm pretty sure if we were to look at the code for it, because it's using xdotool on Linux, for example, is actively finding the application and activating it and then triggering. Oh, I probably should have used Control-Shift-R for that. It used super instead. I used super instead or whatever. The other ways that I've seen this happen is an extension in the browser that something inside of Sublime can talk to, and at least one thing injects into the page as it's opening it in a browser script that causes it to be able to talk back the other way. Sort of in the same way that I can click this button. Surprise! And send a message between the web browser and this. Same sort of thing as related to that. That, I think, is the trickiest part. And when I looked into it, which at this point was probably 6 months ago, the superior solution seemed to be the browser plugin, or the browser, whatever these things are called, extension. Because that way it doesn't have to, you can talk directly to the browser and you don't have to screw around with knowing a more platform specific information or modifying the file as it's being served. By the same token, I don't see why it's a hardship to save the file and then do this. But again, that's just me. I guess if you had them side by side, it would be cool if as you save, stuff happens. But As I mentioned previously, I don't tend to like actions to be taken on behalf of me because I'm doing something. Because maybe I just saved and maybe I'm working on a web page, like say for example the drop game that we work on in the Twitch streams, and I have it open in a browser and I'm actively modifying the code, and while I'm modifying it I want to go look and see what the page currently looks like. I want to be able to save while I'm making my changes without causing the browser to refresh. Yeah. There is that as well, right? And we really run into the situation of there are a lot of different ways to do it, but everybody wants the one way where it's just a single key press, which is achievable in a bunch of different ways, but each one of them requires some amount of setup beforehand, which I think is probably where that gets to be a little unhappy, if I had to guess. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Pardon me. Let us double check here. Command Shift R, it says. Control Shift R. How did I get that in there? Did I not copy that, or was it came from somewhere else, didn't it? That's interesting. This says to add the key binding Command Shift R, but this page says Super Shift R. Those are slightly different things. Also, extra chuckle points for eating using your feet instead of your hands for something like this. Oops, pardon me for bumping the microphone. Months in, I still can't not do that. Yeah, indeed, I was... It's one of the situations where I've often wished that I had mod powers in the forum, specifically so that when people the community more or less polices itself 99.99% of the time when it comes to posting things. And I've thought many a time, I wish I had mod powers so that when people post questions and they forget to put things in code blocks, I could, edit the code block in there into their post so that we could actually see what it is that they're trying to accomplish. But when all of those things were streaking by, I had a similar I wish I had the ability to be like, thank you for pointing this out, but it's being pointed out enough, and we're aware. Please, we're gonna let's keep this civil. Throw the old lock on there. So definitely also glad that Ben did that too. Makes me wonder where the other mod whose name I can't remember right now. J Brooks UK, I think. Daniel Lima, yo, hello, welcome to the stream. We're just playing around a little bit with the browser refresh package, and I don't know that it's necessarily doing anything. Control Shift R. Oh, okay. Boop. Oh, right. It's activating the wrong... Pardon me. It's activating the wrong Chrome. That's fun. Late? Oh... Huh, interesting. For a long time, J Brooks UK was also a moderator on the forum. And Will. Maybe he... I asked Will about that in the forum at one point, and he, or sorry, not in the Discord. If you search for, yeah, let's see. Oh, maybe if I actually searched in the correct Discord, that would work a little better. I know I've asked. Here we go. I've noticed previously that the aforementioned JBrooks UK has some admin powers on the forum. I'm curious how that came about. Friends in high places? I guess that's not really much call for further admins there. And Will said, I believe back in the day, maybe 2013, 2014, he was more heavily involved in the forum and John granted him admin to help manage spam and whatnot. Back in the PHP BB days, I believe the migration to Discourse carried that over. One interesting historical tidbit, JBrooks UK accepted an award on behalf of Sublime HQ that Sublime Text won via a UK organization. And just to point that out, boop, if I do this, you can see the link to said thing. Yeah, he's, according to that, he's somebody that was an admin on the, something we were talking about in the Discord earlier today. The forum as it exists now as Discourse. Before that was PHP BB, and before that was User Echo. And it sounds like, pardon me, he was a mod on the PHP BB board, and when everything got migrated over to Discourse from there, he just got mod rights sort of came along. He very rarely is on the forum, though. I wouldn't be surprised that the page says that you're the only. Well, I mean, I would assume that John is also a mod at some level as the owner of the organization, but I don't know for sure. Whoops. If you search around online, you'll find under James Brooks that he reviewed some Sublime textbook, published some articles and stuff. and Ultra Instinct said it should have received the award every year, though. So there you go. It really should, right? Whatever this package thinks it's doing, it's not. So I can't remember what key I bound it to. Oh, I wonder if... Is he no longer there? Let's see. Here, check this link out. Yeah, that could well be the case. He's got the magic shield next to his name. So, yeah, perhaps. If you hover over it, it says this user is a moderator. So, at some level, something thinks that he's a moderator. He's not around very often, though. So, for what that's worth. So, I wonder if is the page I can give you a reason why I use Sublime over VS Code in 2021. I like Sublime Text better than I like Visual Studio Code. There aren't any features in Visual Studio Code that make me think that I need to use it over Sublime Text, personally speaking. So there's that. My standard answer for something like this, also hello, thoughts and prayers, is tool choice is entirely individual. And anybody that tells you that for task X, the best tool is Y, maybe they're right, maybe they're not, but you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you just automatically assume that something that somebody else said applies to you as well. So my reason to use Sublime over Visual Studio is, if you have to ask the question, you probably haven't tried Sublime, perhaps, and maybe you should try it and see if it makes your workflow better or faster or something along those lines. On the other hand, if you're very proficient with Visual Studio Code, then you don't need to switch. I'm a Sublime Text fanatic, but I'm also a realist. Hello, Cylon Scion. Indeed, you are. It's weird. The link to John on the forum does indeed go nowhere. That's interesting. I've said, going back to the other topic, many a time on this stream and on the streams that I do on Twitch as well, that the best tool isn't the one that somebody else said is the best tool. It's the one that works best for you, because everybody works in a slightly different way. Not to say that change isn't something that we shouldn't be prepared for in any stretch of the imagination, but if you find yourself constantly fighting a tool and there's another tool that maybe doesn't have the same features or costs money versus doesn't, and you don't have those same fights and you get your work done faster than you were doing it with something else, then maybe that's the better tool. Whether that means that you want to purchase that tool or not is also a very personal sort of situation. Well, there you go. And the nice thing about that is that you can refund your purchase within 30 days if you're not happy with it, right? So in that case, it sounds like Visual Studio Code is the tool that is right for you. So that's totally cool. I'm a fan of Sublime Text. I think everybody should be using it just because I think it's cool, but I know realistically that's not how that works. There are a fair number of people who I watch stream on Twitch who use Vim and don't use Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. And they're just as fast working with, each person is just as fast working with their individual tool. The one that you know the ins and outs of the best, the foibles of, is the one that's going to allow you to get your work done faster and better. And I found Sublime Text because I was using tools by JetBrains and they had too many features in them that I didn't want to use, and that was getting in my way. It was actively slowing me down whenever I wanted to do something, trying to figure out where a feature was that I needed. So I found Sublime Text and discovered this is helping me work faster and better. Instead of having everything and then you try to find in the thing you want, it has a lower base set of core functionality and you add on to that just the stuff that you need. I'm interested in that too. I'm going to guess it has something to do with code completion or a built-in terminal. I think those are the two big things. The other one that I hear bandied out about a lot is how the extensions store, if that's what it's actually called in Visual Studio Code, has things like stars and ratings on things, maybe reviews, in a way that package control doesn't. I can see the value in that as well. Huh. What sort of extensions do you normally, or what sort of extensions are you looking for? I'm surprised that John is no longer on the forum, or the page is private. Just sort of looking over there as we're having our little discussion here. For example, if I do this, now I have a terminal in my copy of Sublime. Now I have Git support in Sublime. It comes down to a personal preference whether you think that these sorts of things should be bundled directly with the application or be installable by you. I don't see the benefit personally in having these features be something that ships directly with Sublime, because anybody that's not using Git is going to be confused by options to do stuff that they don't know how to do anything with in the first place. But again, that's entirely a personal thing, and niche extensions are definitely going to be one of those things that, you know, make or break for a lot of things as well. Yeah, I personally prefer a combination of Sublime Merge for doing overall Git operations and the command line when I need to really dial in for stuff. The Git functionality as it is bundled into Visual Studio, which I think is actually the last time I used it, which was a long time ago. I think you had to install something for that too. It wasn't just like an out-of-the-box experience. I could be misremembering that because it's been a while. The way that it integrated Git was less, this is Git version control, this is how all of this stuff works, and more, we have our own paradigm of the idea of change sets and shelving changes and applying changes that we use for all of version control systems. So we're going to map those operations onto Git, so that whether you're using TFS or Visual Source Safe or Git behind the scenes, the operations that you see over here on the side are more or less the same for everything. And while I think that's great for people that use those other systems, I personally wanted it to be like Git, and it actively slowed me down and confused me, because I'm thinking in my head, what I want to do is this. Where's the option to do this? And it wasn't named what I thought it should be named, which is again one of those personal tools for the job is a very personal preference kind of thing. But again, that was, craps. That was at least a couple of years ago at this point. I was writing documentation for people that were being onboarded onto a project that hadn't used any of the related tooling before, and I presumed because those developers use Visual Studio for some of their C# work that they'd want to use Visual Studio Code for this stuff. So I had to install Visual Studio Code to create some documentation for how to set everything up to get their development environments up and running. That's the last time that I ever actually used it. But yeah, Sublime Merge, Terminus, as I've mentioned previously, I don't have the key binding for it right now because we're working in a simple copy of Sublime Text. Here's sort of a sandboxed copy, if you will. But for quick, simple terminal applications that I need while I'm working, I find hitting the key, doing it directly in Sublime, and then closing it faster than swapping out. And then again, particularly if I have a lot of things going on. I know that's a personal preference for people as well. I never got a chance to use GitHub Desktop. there wasn't a version of it for Linux the last time I investigated something like that, and as a result, I didn't bother with it at all because I use the tools that I use. I want them to work across all of the platforms that I work on, and I primarily work on Linux as I am here, and also on Windows. So anything I do has to support at least those two. Mac OS is a bonus because I do have a Mac. It's over here. It's currently monitoring the live stream that we're doing here. I don't use it super often. I did in the past, and every now and then I use it for certain things. But if I like Sublime Text and Sublime Merge because they will work there as well. If there's a tool that will only work on one platform or another, but not both of them, I generally don't consider it at all unless I mostly don't need to do something. For example, Camtasia, the thing I use to create my videos, is a Windows-only application, but I'm okay with using that to create my videos. So that's less of a concern. What I was actually using SmartGit for a while. Then I transitioned into Gitkraken because somebody else was using it. King Keith from the forum and the Discord was using Gitkraken for a bit, so I gave that a crack. I liked some aspects of it. It had built-in project management, sort of akin to what you could do on GitHub, but it was directly inside of the tool, which I found super useful. I didn't like that it only had it didn't have this style of diff for with the left and the right. It only had the other one. The inline. And when it comes to the tool I use to vet changes to see what's different, this is okay if it's in a terminal, but when I want to really see the context of what's going on, I want side-by-side diff, and Gitkraken couldn't do that at the time. And while I was about ready to give up on it, Sublime Merge came around and saved my bacon. Somehow that seems like a trick. I can't imagine that would go well. Didn't somebody complain about how slow Merge was doing something in that repository, or am I thinking of something else? Also, I tend to get my kernel source code from tarballs and not from Git. Weirdly. But yeah, or what about Git-K? Does anybody use that for anything? I'm not even sure if I have. Oh, I do. Whoops. Is there a dark theme? You have to play around with it a little bit, I guess, right? Yeah. We consider. Oh. I'm not surprised. Git-K is the tool my coworker refers to as the graphical Git tool of last resort. He doesn't use Merge, though. He tends to just do stuff from the command line, but he's not doing anything super complicated as of yet. He's pretty new to Git on the whole, but whenever he needs to get more action out of the tree, the commit graph, he tends to fire up Git-K. How does it get that so wrong? Is it just so big that it doesn't know how to even handle it? That's kind of funky. It's been a while since I used that. Yeah, indeed, right? I used that in my introduction to Git, which is coming at some point to the channel. I did one specifically for my coworkers. That this is a tool that was created by the author of the Linux kernel, Linus Torvalds, because the idea of multiple people from multiple teams from all across the globe submitting patches to him made his head explode. So he said, give me a minute. And over a weekend created some shell scripts that were the basis of the original version of Git. And it was named Git because, if I recall correctly, he is one, or self-described is one. Yeah, good times. And now, here we go. For a long time, I was unhappy with how everything was using Git because I was a Subversion guy, and I didn't understand why I would care about the distributed nature of Git and what it could do for me. And then I used it for like 2 days, and the next thing I did after that was migrate all of my Subversion repositories to Git, and I've never looked back. Although I did briefly look at Fossil, which is kind of neat in as much as it has its own wiki built in. And this issue tracker too? I don't think so. I can't remember. But that's sort of a fun thing as well. It has taken the better part of 10 years at this point, I think. No, that can't be right. I'm so old I can't reckon time. But to convince my coworker that Git is like a cool thing. What really got me as the thing that made life better was how branches work, because branches in Subversion are not as much fun as they could be. You know, the way our projects originally started with CVS, so Subversion is like head and shoulders above that. You can actually delete things if you don't want them in the repository anymore. But that whole, notion of your repository should have trunk and dev and branches and do this, that, and the other with them, it was just something that we never really dealt with. As a matter of fact, this is a list, a very old list at this point, because I haven't been on this project for a while, of multiple copies of the same Subversion repository with different things checked out, including one where I was trying to get stuff going with Git, and then I lost network connectivity to things, because it's easier for the way that we work on this particular product to have us, each time we want to start a new thing or work on a bug fix, to check out a fresh, clean copy, give it a specific name, and then just work inside of that particular one. And then when we want to do something with this, basically we replicated how Git does branching ourselves using Subversion. I think it is smart enough to only make reference to new files that have changed. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it's actually, I think it's like a sparse thing. So if you branch and only add one file to your branch, then the whole branch is on revision 25. But if you look at the history for things, it actually knows that this one's 25 and everything else is 24. I can't quite remember exactly the semantics of that because it's been such a long time since I actually worked on it. But the overall handling of it in the repository never really sat well with us. It was easier. And we also, our product is architected so that it knows exactly the location from which it started, kind of like how Sublime is, to be able to find its data directory if you have a portable version. So it's no problem to have multiple copies of it. Dev, hello, welcome to the stream. How's your day going? We're talking about all sorts of things tonight. We've been playing with the browser refresh plugin, which doesn't seem to do much that you might want it to do, because whenever I push the key, It focuses the wrong copy of the browser and doesn't actually refresh it, although I haven't actually checked to see whether there's any errors in the console or anything. It's kind of an old package. We're talking about different source control mechanisms as well. Whether or not Visual Studio Code is the right tool for you, or whether Sublime Text is the appropriate tool, and all sorts of things. We get up to a lot of cool conversations. I like the back and forth that we have with the chat, talking about all of these particular topics and remembering the bygone days of how we used to have to install package control in Sublime Text by copying text directly into its console instead of just picking an item from the menu. How is your day going? I hope your day is going well. I think we're probably going to wrap up here fairly soon because we have hit the 2-hour limit. Or the 2-hour, well, not limit per se. Limit's a bad, a bad way to say that. But the 2 hours that I like to put in for interfacing with the community and answering questions. And I believe I have an ungodly early meeting tomorrow, which is something that I should probably check before too much more time. 5 o'clock. Ah. You heard it here first. People on the West Coast, for example, British Columbia, don't like people on the East Coast, say, for example, people in Boston, when they schedule meetings for 8 o'clock in the morning, their time, because that's 5 o'clock in the morning here, and also the workday starts at 9. It doesn't start at 8. I'm imagining that has something to do with trying to pacify people from the UK for whom it is an entirely different time altogether. But indeed, we should probably not stay super late tonight if I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is in 9 hours from now. That's kind of unfortunate. Awesome. I thought the name looked somewhat familiar. I'm glad Terminus is working out for you. It is a pretty awesome package overall. The other thing that there's another similar-ish package called Sublime REPL, less for terminals per se, but it does offer some of the same functionality as regards to being able to run interactive programs. But my personal preference is for Terminus because it's easier to set up and more general purpose. And I'd rather have a general purpose tool that can do all sorts of things than something that specifically only does one. And, I've helped people solve a lot of problems with that as well over the years, even though it's something that I don't tend to use myself. Pardon me. With the realization that I apparently have a meeting in 7 hours and I have to go to bed, I think that we should perhaps try not to cough too much into the microphone. Sorry about that. And say that that's probably going to do it for this week's stream. Remember, we do streams here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. If you have any questions about Sublime Text, you can drop those into the chat or into the Discord, which I could probably call up just by typing some stuff into the bot and waiting a little while for it to eventually wend its way around. You can ask questions there. You can ask them in the comments section of videos, and you can ask them on Twitch streams, which I also do twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays in the exact same time stream as Dev just pointed out. We still use Sublime Text in those streams, although I do also just do regular software development as well. Let's see. As far as my experience with both editors, code is popular only because of terminal integration, while Sublime is much better in programming perspective. Indeed, I personally prefer Sublime Text, but I know there are people that prefer Visual Studio Code, and as I have said many a time, and will say many a time more, the correct tool is the one that lets you work the way that is most efficient for you, and get your work done faster. That is the tool that you should be using. That's not to say that it isn't beneficial every now and then to cast a net around and look to see what other tools and options are available. They may be different, but maybe they're different in a way that provides some sort of benefit. Maybe not. The only way to know is to find out. That's why you should never take anybody's word for it that tool X or library Y is the best way to do something. Always do your research on those sorts of things. That's the best advice that I can provide for these sorts of tooling related questions and package related questions. Now, just because I don't use LSP doesn't mean that other people don't use it and find that it really helps them out. And maybe it will help me out too once I start using it a little bit more for the videos on the channel. Maybe I'll become an LSP convert. Hard to say. I just haven't gotten around to that yet with all of the other stuff that I have going on. Thank you to everybody who showed up tonight and asked questions and participated in the chat. Had a blast hanging out with all of you. We'll see you in the next stream. Remember, tomorrow, same time on Twitch. If you'd like to hang out as well, have more discussions about tools. I might even fire up Visual Studio Code on a Twitch stream and see what all the fuss is about. I may or may not have downloaded it on this computer. I can't remember. It's been a while. But until the next stream, everybody, I want you to have a sublime day, have a sublime night, have a sublime week. If I don't see you until next Monday in a video or next stream, I hope you all have an awesome week. And remember to be sublime to each other as well out there. And with that, have a sublime night, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.